Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
And now we are facing a storm surge.
Caught in a COVID-19 storm. Another record number of new cases in BC. Also,
we're thinking the study will probably run for the next 3 months.
Results in 30 minutes. Researchers roll out a COVID rapid testing pilot project at YVR. And
it does look nice, and it's nice to bring a little bit of Christmas cheer, I suppose, out.
Let there be light. Finding brightness during dark times.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. So BC is ending a long and difficult week with more grim news on COVID-19. For the fourth day in a row now, we have recorded double-digit deaths from the disease.
We've also hit another record daily case count. Our Dan Burrett joins us now live once again with the latest numbers. And Dan, we're also learning more about where we're seeing the infections.
First, almost a dozen more families in BC are mourning the death of a loved one today. 11 more people have died from COVID-19 here, most of them in their 70s and 80s. Grandparents and elders, notes Dr. Bonnie Henry. We've also lost 395 people in total so far. We have 911 new cases today, a new record. And again, the vast majority are in Fraser Health. Just over 300 people are in hospital, 69 of them in intensive care. We have more than 8,700 active cases province-wide, and more than 10,400 people are under public health monitoring. So why and where? Dr. Henry says colder weather and more people indoors are prime conditions for this disease to spread. She says that means places that could safely host gatherings just a few weeks ago, like places of worship, are not safe anymore.
These locations are not doing anything wrong. I know vast majority have had very good COVID safety plans in place. They've had limited numbers of people coming for services. But despite that, we have seen outbreaks in BC, in churches, in multiple faiths, in multiple places in the province. It is a cruel irony in many ways that when we most need to be with people, that is the most dangerous thing that we can do with this level of transmission we're seeing in communities across the province.
So Dan, we know the transmission is certainly not limited to just social gatherings. It's happening in workplaces as well.
And in some places, workplaces, you may not expect, Tanya. Dr. Henry says they're not seeing much transmission, for example, between workers and customers in shops, so people can feel safe heading into a shop or an office. Of course, you have to wear masks in most indoor public spaces, with a few medical exemptions. But it's people working together where there's a problem, especially if someone brings the disease to work from a social event or, for example, a fitness class.
Car dealerships, construction sites, lumber mills, lumber places, a lot of light industrial places where people may be in close contact with each other. We've had another poultry plant where things had slipped and there was clusters, quite a large number of people who were infected.
Keep in mind, a week has passed since Dr. Henry ordered people to wear masks in most indoor public spaces and recommend we not travel unless we absolutely have to. The incubation period for COVID-19 is 14 days, so we will wait to see if the tighter restrictions will crank down our case counts in the week ahead. Tanya, Mike?
All right, we shall see. Dan Burrett live tonight. Thanks. The BC Government and Service Employees Union says not enough is being done to protect courthouse staff in Surrey. This after 8 sheriffs tested positive for COVID-19. The Attorney General's office says the provincial courthouse does remain open and trials are still being held. All courtrooms are cleaned and anyone entering the courthouse has to answer questions about their health and travel. But for its part, Fraser Health says it has not declared an outbreak at the courthouse, though it won't say how many staff are infected.
Work sites are supposed to have safety protocols, and clearly whatever safety protocols were put in place by management at the Surrey Courthouse aren't working.
According to the union, along with the 8 sheriffs, 25 other sheriffs and staff are in self-isolation.
Well, TransLink has announced some changes to its mask policy.
We are now asking you to wear masks in indoor and sheltered areas around transit, so not just on vehicles. This means in stations, bus shelters, anywhere that's covered, wear your mask.
On that note, face shields will no longer be accepted. You must wear a face mask. Transit police can issue a fine of $230 for non-compliance. As for what you should do if you notice a passenger not wearing a mask, TransLink suggests you notify an official and to not take enforcement into your own hands.
BC businesses are urging customers to shop local this holiday season to help recover from pandemic losses. As our Eva Yuguen reports, local stores have adapted to offer Black Friday deals while ensuring a safe shopping experience.
Black Friday shoppers are no stranger to lineups. This year, with distancing and limited capacity, the in-store experience is more relaxed.
We have had lineups every day.
Comore Sports is offering Black Friday deals over 2 weeks to spread out customer traffic and attract more shoppers to the local store.
The major benefits is the quality of service and the quality of knowledge that you'll get from shopping from us as opposed to other retailers like Amazon.
Comore is implementing temperature checks for customers. It also dedicated one of its stores as a pickup location for online shoppers. Advocates want the message to shop local to last beyond Black Friday and into the holiday season.
I think if shoppers don't support them with their spending through the holiday season, many of them will not make it.
Keeping local and limit your travel. Shop locally. Support our local businesses who need our support, whether that's shopping online and picking up or booking ahead or going at a time where it's not so busy.
The latest Scoop clothing store in Vancouver is doing everything to draw in customers over the holidays.
New Year's gear or even holiday gear, dresses, glitz and glamorous stuff isn't really on the hearts and minds of people today, so we've adjusted to have more comfy, cozy, casual sets.
It is also personalizing the online shopping experience.
We do virtual shopping appointments as well, where we will literally FaceTime with customers so they can see what we have in store and speak face-to-face with someone.
For local businesses that weathered the first wave of the pandemic, holiday season sales are an opportunity to make up losses from the spring.
This season is critical for us because we did have those months of being shut down.
She says the local community has shown its support so far in the pandemic and is hopeful that will last until things become more normal. Eva Yuguen, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, if it seems like more people are putting up their Christmas lights and trees earlier this year, you might be onto something. Yeah, as Tina Lovegreen explains, people are in search of some brightness during the pandemic.
It's not the high heights Mike Criddle is used to. He's a commercial pilot. But after being furloughed due to COVID-19, he's found a new gig, stringing Christmas lights.
It's nice when we get a place like this done and the owners appreciate what we've done, and you know it does look nice, and it's nice to bring a little bit of Christmas cheer, I suppose, out.
And people have been looking for extra cheer this year.
I've been in this for 11 years, and it's by far the busiest year we've ever had. People are doing it earlier. We expect the lights to stay up longer. People are stuck at home and not traveling this holiday season. They tend to want to make their homes a lot more comfortable.
And it's not just private homes where they're spreading a little joy.
Compared to everything else that we've done, this is definitely one of our bigger projects that we're putting together.
His company is installing a winter wonderland for residents in this care community in Surrey, where many won't be able to visit with family this year.
We haven't been out in 9 to 10 months, any of us been anywhere. So anything they can bring for Christmas is joy.
It makes me quite emotional to see Sharon and hear Sharon come out and share that this has brightened her heart and her soul. It's exactly what we wanted, so it makes me feel really good.
If you're looking for something fun to do this weekend, psychologists say putting up decorations can elevate your mood. It brings a bit of warmth and color to your house, but it also taps into tradition.
Cultural rituals are really important to people, because they provide things that are stable and positive and normalizing. And the rituals are things that outlive our mortality. They outlive the sickness and death of COVID-19. But we've not been able to pursue a lot of these rituals during the pandemic.
Everyone just trying to find a bit of brightness during dark times. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Surrey.
If there is one thing a lot of people miss right now, it's being able to travel. Well, a new pilot project at Vancouver International Airport is working on a way to bring it back safely.
It is enlisting volunteers to try out rapid testing before boarding domestic flights. Here's a look at how it works.
So far, the results have been really positive. Not only positive in terms of the fact that we've detected no COVID, but also positive in terms of the process itself. They find it easy, they find it calming, and it really builds their confidence and their knowledge going forward.
A terrifying moment has landed a man in hospital. He became trapped in a trench that collapsed at a construction site in East Vancouver last night. Firefighters spent 3 hours using a vacuum truck to rescue the man who was buried in debris. He was eventually pulled out by rope. The trench gave way at about 11 o'clock. Initially, a total of 3 men working on the excavation were pulled in. 2 of the men managed to get out on their own. The dig is part of an ongoing construction project at Van Ness Avenue and Joyce Street.
Well, BC's police watchdog is investigating after a man went into medical distress and died during a confrontation with Vancouver police last night. The VPD says staff at the Tim Hortons on Terminal near Main called them just after 6 p.m. for a man who'd been in the washroom for more than half an hour. Workers were shutting down the dining area and asked that he be moved. Officers say when he came out, he was agitated and aggressive, and then some kind of fight broke out. He then went into medical distress. Paramedics tried to save him, but he died. The Independent Investigations Office looks into any incident involving police that leads to serious harm or death.
Snowfall warning is in effect for inland parts of BC's Central Coast tonight, causing widespread power outages. This video was sent in by a viewer in Anaheim Lake. He says he's received around 2 feet of snow so far. Other towns in the area, like Bella Coola, saw 18 centimeters overnight and got another 20 today. BC Hydro says at least 1,200 customers lost power today, and many can expect to be in the dark until at least tomorrow morning. Environment Canada says the region could see another 10 to 15 centimeters overnight.
And on that note, let's go to our meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe with the latest forecast. Jo, we're not seeing anything quite like that here on the South Coast, but still another day of rain.
Yes, and the system that is bringing all of that snow to central and coastal sections of the province, that's what we're waiting for here down on the South Coast. Quite an impressive cold front. The reason why they've seen so much snow up there is that it's been draped in place for over a day now. Let me take you back down to the current temperatures here on the South Coast. An old well, it's not an old adage, it's scientific fact. It's always warmest before the cold front rolls through. So a 10 right now at YVR as we get a nice little southerly push, but that cold front is coming and it will be bringing the rain. There it is, the leading edge just crossing the Sunshine Coast. In fact, Alliance Bay, I imagine getting some showers right now. Any minute we'll feel the raindrops across Metro Vancouver, but the heavier rain right now hitting Nanaimo and Sunshine Coast, that will make its way into Metro Vancouver in the next couple of hours. So a good shot of heavy rain with gusty winds. Speaking of winds, those wind warnings have just ended. They were in place for the Sunshine Coast. So it's a quick moving system. I imagine through the overnight, we'll see those snowfall warnings end as well. This cold front is finally moving on. But for tonight, Prince George looking at another 10-ish centimeters. Same story for Bella Coola. And then you can see heavy rain still on the west coast of Vancouver. So I'll take you through the cold front and into a sunny weekend. I know we've been waiting days for it coming up.
All right, Joe, thanks very much. Talk to you in a bit. Well, with all the rain and snow, summer feels like a long way off these days, but it is at the top of mind for some people in our arts community.
Yeah, preparations for the summer festival season are already underway months ahead of time.
But as Marie Zeidler is finding out, the pandemic has made planning for anything a bit tricky these days.
Vancouver jazz musician Jody Prosnick doesn't get a lot of opportunities to perform these days.
I just I miss playing with people for people a lot. I miss it. I miss my bass. You know, it's not the same in my basement. It's just not.
COVID-19 has kept Prosnick mostly at home these past few months instead of doing what she loves the most.
I had a bunch of tours planned in April I was really looking forward to, and festivals all throughout the summer, and everything just stopped. So there was a little bit of a, uh-oh, what am I gonna do?
Prosnick is used to playing shows like these, the kind of live music performances that a lot of people in BC usually flock to. This one was a little bit different.
We are so delighted to have been invited to perform here at Frankie's Jazz Club for 5 or 6 cameras, and hopefully a bunch of you on the other side of this.
This was one of 6 shows Coastal Jazz and Blues presented this fall online for free. Normally, the organization plans these kinds of events. Before the pandemic, the Jazz Festival's audience was in the thousands. Organizers hope this summer's events might accommodate dozens, and that's if current restrictions are lifted by then.
Keeping up with ever-changing restrictions is hard enough for most of us, but for musicians and festivals, it means having to constantly stay nimble in order to survive.
We essentially had a whole program ready to roll out, and it was super beautiful and exciting, and that is when a lot of these new realities unfolded.
Canceling last year's festival was hard enough, but then came the really tricky part, figuring out what to do instead.
It takes a lot of adjustment, ongoing adjustment, open-minded thinking, and looking at different permutations.
For now, the festival is looking at a mix of outdoor concerts and a few small indoor events, but everyone's ready to pivot at a moment's notice if they need to.
You just have to be prepared. You have to be nimble, you have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible. You can't attach too much to anything working out. And when things do, you breathe a sigh of relief.
Marie Zeidler, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Canada's Governor General has announced the latest recipients of the Order of Canada. And yes, a few British Columbians made the list for their outstanding achievements. 2 were named officers, including West Vancouver's Marcia Cran. She's being recognized for her contributions to the advancement of international human rights and development and for her advocacy of democratic governance. Cran is a lawyer and a former director of the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. Also making the upgrade list is Joseph Wask, who is a rabbi, author, and professor at Simon Fraser University. He's being honored for his far-reaching contributions to his community as a scholar, educator, and writer, as well for his generous philanthropy. 15 other British Columbians were named members of the Order of Canada, ranging from a dancer and scientists to doctors.
Yeah, congratulations to all of them. Just a reminder, you can also watch this newscast live on CBC Gem.
And CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
Still ahead tonight, the Prime Minister puts the military on standby to front the COVID-19 vaccine rollout once it's ready. And a former NATO commander will play a pivotal role. Full details right after the break.
Well, thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. The pandemic is laying the groundwork for a very different Christmas this year.
And that means some big changes for the big guy, Santa, especially when it comes to visits from kids. Susanna De Silva takes a look at how the jolly old elf is morphing his plan.
No matter the setup, the goal for kids is always the same, telling Santa what they want for Christmas any way they can.
I'm a baby Yoda. I asked it for a puppy that walks and talks and closes I don't goes to sleep and poops and pees. And I can smile.
At the West Edmonton Mall, Santa is taking wishes from a distance this year, with spaced out appointments and time in between to Santatize his sleigh.
Just waves from afar, but kids are just excited to be able to see him.
And they hoped the distance from Santa might be a good thing to get a tear-free photo.
You're a big girl now, aren't you?
Santa plans vary at malls across the country. In some, Santa will only be there in spirit. In others, there will be virtual visits and online story times.
What would you like for Christmas?
At this BC mall, Santa helped design his own set with safety in mind. His 24th year on the job, the first behind plexiglass. But new restrictions have put even those plans on hold. Still, whether in person or online, he's ready for new questions from kids this year, like how can Santa deliver gifts to our home safely?
Well, as Bonnie Henry had suggested, that Santa is probably immune from the virus. And of course, elves, they're not humans. They don't have to worry about that at all.
What do you say to a child whose wish is for COVID to go away?
I would say to a child, you have to realize that Santa, in essence, is a toy maker. I can make enough toys for all the boys and girls, and I can get them around the world in one night. However, there are some things I just can't build in a toy shop. But I would say, if you'd like, when I get back to the North Pole tonight, I'll gather all the elves together and Mrs. Claus in our great room, and we'll say a little prayer. You get that wish. Bye-bye.
A wish that is on everyone's Christmas list. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
And as we heard, and Dr. Bonnie Henry confirmed this, the big guy is definitely immune from COVID-19.
That's right. He's COVID friendly across the board, so no fears there. My favorite is when the kids, I feel for the parents, but the photos when the kids are just screaming in the picture.
Yeah, I've been there.
Those make the best ones later on.
Yeah, I got pictures and the video to prove it.
Oh, even better.
There you go.
All right, we'll be back in just a few moments with more news, COVID-related and otherwise, from right around the country and across the world.
We were looking forward to seeing you at our open house, but things are different this year. Last year, we raised more than $1 million for local food banks across BC. We're not going to let 2020 stop us.
It's great to see you.
Especially at a time when the food banks need support the most.
I'm so glad you asked.
Join us online and on Radio 1 for CBC British Columbia's Food Bank Day on December 4th.
Welcome back. Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced the Canadian military will help the government distribute the COVID-19 vaccine when it becomes available. And as David Cochran reports, a former NATO commander is going to play a big role.
The Prime Minister has described the battle against COVID as a wartime effort that's now escalating for the vaccine rollout.
The Canadian Armed Forces will assist on planning, including to meet challenges like cold storage requirements, data sharing, and reaching Indigenous and rural communities.
It will be coordinated through a national operations center with a military commander in a key role.
Major General Danny Fortin will be heading up the logistics and operations within this center.
Fortin currently plays a senior role in military operations. He previously led the NATO mission in Iraq.
He is the most incredible leader that I can imagine.
High praise for the pick from Rick Hillier, the retired Chief of Defence Staff, who will be leading vaccine logistics for Ontario, where cases are surging and big questions remain.
I told the Prime Minister that we need answers, and we expect answers, because we can't have Canadians watching as our allies start getting vaccines without having a clear answer on when we will be getting it.
I know there's a lot of focus right now on when do we reach the starting line.
Trudeau says he understands the impatience, but says vaccines should arrive in January and ramp up from there.
This pandemic doesn't get over until we reach the finish line. And that's why the news that Canadians can expect, if all goes well, to have more than half of us vaccinated by next September is significant positive news.
Trudeau paired that message of hope with a grim reminder of where things are right now. With cases surging across the country, he warned that the darkest days of the pandemic still lie ahead. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
And with a vaccine against COVID-19 on the horizon, vaccine hesitancy has become an issue for some. One concern people have is the speed of development. But Dr. Scott Halperin, who's working with public health officials to address top vaccine concerns from Canadians, says the process is not moving too fast, just very efficiently.
What they're doing is what's called a rolling submission. So as data becomes available, both on safety and effectiveness, the companies are allowed to submit those data so that the Health Canada reviewers can already be starting the work to review them, which can take weeks at a time to review. They're already doing that, so when the vaccine is actually ready, the approvals will already be there. So it's that efficiency that we're doing.
Halperin adds, with any vaccine development, safety is the #1 priority, and all clinical trial data will be made available to the public.
Well, to Quebec now, where for months parents have been voicing their concerns about ventilation in schools. Criticism has centered around whether enough is being done to prevent the airborne spread of COVID-19. Today, that province's education ministry released a report, and it finds ventilation in schools is adequate. But as Chloe Rinaldi reports, some question whether it tells the whole story.
At St. Charles Elementary School in Pierrefonds, classrooms are now equipped with new air purifiers.
As our last line of defense,
the head of Lethbridge Pearson School Board says they took matters into their own hands, investing $500,000 in these systems.
Where when we kept reading the literature and looking at different HEPA air purifiers, is that they were selling out because we were doing the same thing as the rest of the world.
The Education Ministry released a report looking at the state of ventilation in schools. It says more than 99% meet norms for natural or mechanical ventilation, and more than 97% of systems are properly maintained. But more than half of schools don't even have a ventilation system. The Liberal education critic says the government is painting a very different picture than the findings released earlier this week by a group of teachers.
It's like the minister is living in another planet. This week, we had the group Stop COVID who went on and measured the quality of air of different classrooms, and we know that 75% of them, the quality is not good.
Physicist Nancy Delagrave, who is with the Stop COVID group, says the solution is simple.
You need real-time monitoring of CO2 because they're doing ventilation in most Montreal schools with windows.
At Royal West Academy in NDG, some parents are hoping the English Montreal School Board will follow in the footsteps of the Lethbridge B. Pearson School Board. They're even ready to help pay.
The EMSB has not made any decision about what to do to protect the children and the teachers. So the only thing in place is that there's open windows. And so our kids are already starting to freeze, as are the teachers. And so the kids are in the cold, but the parents are in the dark.
Despite the results, the ministry is asking schools to check carbon dioxide levels starting December 1st. The health ministry is also waiting on another expert's report. That will make new recommendations about ventilation to help curb the spread of COVID-19, which is expected to be released soon. Chloe Rinaldi, CBC News, Montreal.
The COVID-19 pandemic has dominated 2020, but protests across the United States and Canada for racial justice have also been top of mind. Two men who have worked for years in Canada's oil sands are speaking out about the systemic racism they say they've faced. They share their experience with Asha Tomlinson in the first installment of a new Marketplace series called Face Racism.
My man. Shane McQueen and Gary Similian have spent years working in Alberta's oil sands. They started out with great expectations, but what they didn't expect was to be constantly singled out, they say, for being black.
Did you guys feel like you were treated differently?
Oh, in my case, big time. Similian recalls an experience last year with a former co-worker at the company Badger Daylighting.
Many times he said to me, Mangawe, I can basically slap the black out of you, but just on a jokingly way.
Similian says he didn't report the issue because the co-worker was well connected within the company. And Badger says their code of conduct prohibits them from commenting. McQueen says he's been the target of racist jokes too, but his bigger concern, he's on contract and he's been trying to get a permanent job.
How many rejection letters have you received through the years?
Like literally, probably about 40, 50.
You just don't complain about things. You're supposed to suck it up.
Professor Sarah Duro says McQueen is not alone. She's spent more than a decade researching oil sands workers and says systemic racism is at play in the patch.
You have to work harder to prove yourself. Even if you sort of do get in, you might hit that ceiling, right? That given the old boys network culture there, and it isn't to a great degree an old white boys network, that actually being able to move up is also more difficult.
McQueen is ready for change. He's meeting with Jess Thompson, an executive member of Women Building Futures, an organization that's helped women break into the trades for more than 2 decades.
My goal is to try to see the same type of thing for minorities.
I think that there's a lot of work that can be done there, and having someone like yourself champion that work and partner with community organizations to do it is a wonderful thing.
McQueen says he's hopeful for the future. Asha Tomlinson, CBC News, Toronto.
And you can watch the full investigation on CBC Marketplace tonight at 8, and of course watch it anytime on CBC Gem.
Well, coming up, a university student makes a universal discovery, an asteroid speeding past the Earth. Our Johanna Wagstaffe spoke with the budding astronomer, and that's coming up next.
The Grey Cup is still a Canadian trophy. The BC Lions held off the American Challenge in Vancouver today. Baltimore was the first team from the United States ever to play in the CFL final. But the hometown or home country team won in one of the most dramatic ways possible. The final score, 26-23. Ian Hannah-Mansing reports.
Will win again.
It is the biggest party of the year for the CFL, and rarely has it been bigger than this year. More than 55,000 fans streamed into BC Place this afternoon. Normally, the rivalry at Grey Cup time is regional, east-west. This time, with an American team playing, it seemed more a matter of national pride.
The American team should stay in the NFL. CFL belongs to the Canadian teams.
This Lions fan was inspired to wave an upside-down American flag.
Because they sung the anthem wrong, and they held our flag upside down one time, too.
But most seem pretty good-natured about the international competition.
Okay, I think it makes it very interesting, good competition, really gets the fans going, new dimension to the game.
I'm a football fan. I just let the best team win. I really, like that.
While the game was getting underway, downtown Vancouver seemed filled with police. Hundreds of extra officers were called in, says the department, to make sure there wouldn't be a replay of last June's Stanley Cup riot. But at the game itself, the focus was football, not security. And more than 3 hours after kickoff, a dramatic Grey Cup winning field goal from the CFL's oldest player, British Columbia's Louis Passaglia.
It's the type of win a hometown crowd really seems to like, and here there were horns blaring and people cheering, but no chaos on the streets. Wendy?
Well, the police were out on the streets in case something did go wrong. No sign of trouble? Everyone's well behaved?
Not really. A couple of dramatic differences from last June. First of all, you listen to the police radio and it's quite obvious that with helicopters in the air and police officers on the ground, they have a much better sense of what's happening. And also, there was no huge crowd massing before the end of the game. In June, we had 50, 60,000 people already on the streets. Here, the streets were virtually empty before the game ended. Wendy?
Well, quite the night. Thanks a lot, Ian.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
We are seeing a much higher level of community transmission.
And Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry says that means places that were safe to have small events even a few weeks ago are not safe today. She adds those locations aren't necessarily doing anything wrong. Dr. Henry is reporting 11 more deaths in BC today and a record 911 new cases. 301 people are now in the hospital with 69 in critical care.
Clearly, whatever safety protocols were put in place by management at the Surrey Courthouse aren't working.
The union representing courthouse staff in Surrey is pressuring the province for better pandemic protection. 8 sheriffs have contracted COVID-19, and it's believed 25 other sheriffs and staff are in self-isolation. The Attorney General's office says the provincial courthouse remains open. Trials are still being held. Fraser Health says it has not declared an outbreak there, though it won't say how many staff are infected.
The major benefits is the quality of service and the quality of knowledge that you'll get from shopping from us as opposed to other retailers like Amazon.
And BC businesses are urging customers to shop local this holiday season to help recover from pandemic losses. Local stores have adapted to offer Black Friday deals while still ensuring a safe shopping experience.
Well, today's grim COVID-19 numbers come even after the province imposed a stringent new rule. As of last week, of course, wearing a mask in public indoor spaces became mandatory.
And as Greg Rasmussen tells us, since then, it's led to some serious altercations.
A Walmart employee punched and kicked by an irate customer who turned violent after being asked to cover his face. Police arrested a suspect and say the victim was only doing his job.
Certainly business owners have the right to refuse customers entry into their premises based on the lack of wearing a mask.
Another incident. In Nelson, a man turned abusive after being told to wear a mask. He spat on an employee at this cafe, who later had a heart attack and is now in hospital.
Everybody needs to calm down. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and you may not like certain things, but I mean, people are just trying to work, and we're all trying to get through this.
We've heard stories this week, and they make me very concerned and sad.
For months, Dr. Bonnie Henry resisted calls for a mask mandate, saying it would create unnecessary challenges with enforcement. But she relented last week after retailers pushed for the ability to call in the police.
This requirement to wear a mask in indoor public locations is a provincial order that everyone must follow, just as we do things like wearing seatbelts and helmets and following the speed limits.
I said to stay off the bus till you put a mask on!
But this leaves frontline workers as enforcers, leading to more stress. This BC Transit driver yelled repeatedly at a man for not wearing a mask.
I'm sorry! You're not wearing a proper mask! Get off
and kept yelling even after the passenger apologized. The combination of enforcement and education should convince the vast majority of people to wear masks, says this psychologist, who warns that a few people will always be difficult to reach.
85 to 90% of people will be okay with it. For anti-maskers, you need another messaging strategy, a strategy that doesn't make them feel like they're being pushed around or robbed of their freedoms.
His advice, if you see someone breaking the rules, better to bite your tongue than risk things turning violent. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Vancouver.
Science, yes, here we are. A Western University student recently had a night he'll never forget. He spotted a previously undiscovered asteroid speeding past Earth. The asteroid came within 30,000 kilometers of Earth and is now safely on its way back into space.
But with so many astronomers around the world looking for this type of close encounter, it was a surprising find for the student. CBC's Johanna Wagstaffe joins us with more on this. And Joe, you had a chance to speak with the astronomer?
I did. I had a great chat with 22-year-old Cole Gregg, a master's student at Western University, my alma mater, who was working at home because of the pandemic, but was still able to get access to a telescope, a remote access to a telescope in Spain. I'll let him describe the moment that he saw the asteroid, though. Take a listen.
Just here in the basement at a home in Chatham, and I'm looking through these images, and you can see the asteroid moving across the field of view compared to the stars. And when I saw it, it was just like, oh, maybe it's just a satellite that we caught, or maybe it's space debris that we're just finding that's orbiting the Earth. But found out that it wasn't. That was really cool.
It was really cool. There are usually arrays of telescopes constantly monitoring the sky for something like this. Let me show you the three images that caught his eye. Cole is actually studying moon-orbiting asteroids, of which we have seen none, but theoretically they should exist. So he was looking at a particular speed, and that's how this caught his eye. I want to show you images from the telescope he used in Spain, again, remotely accessing it through the internet. Cole said that because of the pandemic, a lot more people are working from home and reserving times on this telescope, so making it all the more remarkable that he was able to snag a time to view the sky, and in that one little patch, captured a near-Earth asteroid.
Fascinating stuff. Joe, what more do we know about the actual asteroid?
So based on the images, we know that this asteroid is between 30 and 100 meters, and 30,000 kilometers to Earth is very close, given that the moon is just over 300,000 kilometers, to put that into context. But I'll let Cole explain what the next steps are.
Since it's around Earth's orbit, we predict that its period is only about a year. So we're hoping next year around this time that it should be in the vicinity of Earth again. We'll be able to get some more images of it. And then just with more observations, you just get finer tuning of the exact orbit. And then after a few years of observations, that's when you can kind of say, like, yeah, we know its orbit. And that's when it gets included into all the databases.
And this will likely get included in the near-Earth asteroid database, and we'll probably want to continue to monitor this one. But as Cole said, it'll come around again sometime next year, and I will check in with him to see what more we find out. Take another look at one last look at that far off asteroid. I asked Cole if he would get any say in naming it. Right now, it's just a bunch of numbers and letters, and he said these types of asteroids needs to be categorized with Greek mythology. So I looked it up, and there's a Gregoris. So maybe he could go with something like that. I'll let you know in about a year.
I like it.
Thanks, Joe. Got to keep an eye on these asteroids, you know. All right. We'll talk to you in a bit with the forecast. Thanks, Joe.
Sounds good.
And still ahead tonight, it's become a common crime of opportunity. Your online purchase scooped from the front porch. Coming up next, what you can do to protect your holiday buys.
And at 6:42, a live look at Prince George on this snowy Friday evening. A snowfall warning is in effect for the region there tonight. The weekend here is looking pretty good, actually, for the south coast, but not before some more rain and wind tonight. Johanna's full forecast is next.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates.
Rebate.
Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
Joe's back now with the forecast. You showed us that rather enormous green blob on the radar heading our way. I assume that is still the case.
Yeah, I can almost see it take form outside the window. The first raindrops are falling across Metro Vancouver. In fact, yep, I just checked a street light and they are officially falling here in East Van. Let me take you back to that green blob. It is now moving in across Metro Vancouver, and it will continue to cross Vancouver over the next couple of hours. Still looking at those snowfall warnings to the north and rain to the west side of the island. Taking you through the forecast for the south coast, things clear out dramatically tonight. Behind that rain, it will be heavy and gusty and quick, and behind it, a pretty decent overnight and Saturday. Some lingering fog possible, as is always the case behind these cold fronts. Some lingering moisture might get locked in, but I think it'll clear out nicely for a good-looking Saturday. Sunday morning, the chance of some sunny breaks, but by Sunday afternoon, the next system, there it is, moving in across the island. It might take until the afternoon to get to us, though, so not a bad start to your Sunday either. There's that cold front quickly tracking east, being replaced by high pressure for the Saturday. Look at that, a brand new cold front moving in for north and central coastal sections. That's not the one that gets us on Sunday, though. This little low skirts up from the south. That cold front will be our story for Monday. Lots of sunshine across the province tomorrow, though, with the exception, of course, of Prince Rupert getting that second system already, but a nice break for everyone, almost everyone across the province. And I just have to note, it's not just BC, very rare countrywide sunshine and seasonal temperatures. It's not very often we sort of share in a good-looking weekend forecast. So don't feel guilty about posting you out enjoying the sun for any of your friends east of the Rockies. It's a good-looking day for almost everyone. We've got the rain moving back in Sunday, as I mentioned, but starting Tuesday, a shift in our weather pattern. Cold and clear is the word, and it looks like that next one will stick around until next weekend. So just a little blip in there. Not a bad forecast.
All right, well, it's been a long time coming. We will appreciate those sunny dry breaks once they arrive. Thanks so much, Johanna.
You're welcome.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, there is a push to make sure local businesses benefit from Black Friday shopping dollars this year.
Jacqueline Hansen looks at some creative ways struggling retailers are getting their goods to Canadian customers.
Supporting local businesses is Melissa Zucker's bread and butter. For 6 years, she organized pop-up food and artisan markets, but the pandemic pushed her marketplace online.
It's innovation that grew from COVID.
The virtual Toronto Market Co. has 90 local vendors on one website.
Really trying to connect our customer with local goods that they may otherwise not know about, or it might be a bit hard to have access to.
Convenience and price are often barriers to shopping local, but in the pandemic, there's a new wave of support.
We're trying to do this in an effort to make a difference, almost as a patriotic duty.
In Winnipeg, restaurant owner and former CFL player Abi Khan launched a virtual marketplace called Good Local.
The response has been insane.
In just 3 weeks, orders skyrocketed from 18 to more than 700.
You could see tears in some of our vendors' eyes that they were saying, I have sold more in 2 weeks than I've sold in the last 9 months since COVID started. Because of you, Abi, we can now pay our mortgage this month.
But Good Local is losing money. It's not charging commission, and its delivery fee is just $5. With plans to expand, it needs funding, IT support, and more space.
I fundamentally believe that's a paradigm shift going forward. People will always want to support local if you can make it easy for them.
Reaching critical mass is key for movements like this to have a real financial impact.
Individual consumers trying to make a difference in our community are going to benefit from that personally by feeling better about ourselves. But economically, things only make a difference if we find a way to scale this up.
704 more to go.
And expanding could be a win-win for small businesses that need more sales and for consumers who may need to feel good right now more than ever. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
And the surge in online shopping for the holidays is raising new concerns about so-called porch pirates, the thieves who steal online deliveries left outside, at the front door, on the floor of the mailroom.
As Kwabena Oduro reports, police and consumer advocates are issuing warnings and offering advice on how to avoid becoming a victim.
While Dollar Des Armeaux resident Tion Meta takes care of business in front of his home, you may notice the parcel on his porch. He does a lot of online shopping, but over the past 2 years, he's run into some bad luck with getting his items.
Over the last 2 years, maybe 5 or 6 times. Yeah, quite a bit actually. Yeah, it happens in this neighborhood like quite so often. Yeah, so I make sure to kind of be more vigilant about it.
Meta says that he's lost a couple of $100s from these thefts. After the first few times, Meta realized he had to start taking extra precautions.
Depending on the company, I try to make notes, calls or emails to say like, hey, don't leave the package at the door, ring the doorbell.
It's cases like these which prompted the Montreal police to start a public awareness campaign. They have released some prevention tips.
Ask to a neighbor if it's possible to get your package when you think you'll be absent at the time of the delivery. And otherwise, you can ask to your neighbor if it's possible to leave the package at his home.
When receiving a package, it's important to know what your consumer rights are. According to a consumer advocacy group, it's the merchant's responsibility to not only make sure that the package gets to your door, but also into your hands.
Well, what should happen is that the merchant sends you another package and the merchant must turn against the transporter to make sure to get his money back or get a refund.
But Meta says that isn't always the case and companies must be held accountable.
Sometimes the package, the delivery guy, he doesn't care. He just throws the package down and he goes on about his day, but it's us taking the loss, right?
Despite the losses, Meta says he will continue to shop online, saying he doesn't have many other options. Kwabena Oduro, CBC News, Montreal.
Up next, an online gaming battle between two political heavyweights. Canada's Jagmeet Singh versus U.S. Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. What they played and why after the break.
The UPEI Student Union says this survey generated the biggest response seen in years. More than 1,000 students shared personal and sometimes painful insights into what school's been like this semester with online learning during the pandemic.
With the exception of the Vet College, there have been few in-person classes on campus, but hour after hour of online learning in front of computer screens. The Student Union surveyed students to ask how it affects them. 63% say they've struggled more with mental health. 11% report thoughts of suicide, but only a fraction have used on-campus mental health services. In the virtual classroom, more than 70% say online learning has increased their workload. Just as many say it may lower their marks. 44% said it has cost them more money for things like extra data and upgrading their computers. Student leaders say this survey shows an urgent need for change.
It's something new for everyone. It's new for faculty and it's new for students. There were some online courses before, but they were made for an online format. So it's a very different conversation. And I think that, there's a learning curve for everything, but it's important to hear the student feedback on this as the recipients of the learning piece.
Survey results were presented to the University Senate last week. Its recommendations include broader access to counseling services here on campus and revision of online materials. Administrators say they will continue to work with students during these tough times. Brian Higgins, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Canada Post knows the challenges it's facing. There aren't enough P.O. boxes with roughly 400 people on the wait list. It knows going to 2 places to pick up mail is brutal, and it knows it doesn't have enough space in storage. The company has hired more staff and extended hours for the holidays. It's also trying to make it easier for post office staff to find parcels, thereby reducing what can be hour-long wait times.
It's just doing it differently than the way we've done it and the way we do it in other communities. Because everything is flown in, we're looking at how we can pre-sort a lot of this stuff so that it then doesn't have to be resorted when it gets to Iqaluit.
Iqaluit Mayor Kenny Bell, a longtime critic of Canada Post, says the company has had better communication in recent months. He says he's optimistic Iqaluit should see a difference very soon, but in terms of finding a new and larger space, it's a problem Bell can sympathize with.
We understand how hard it is to find location. We fought for and finally got his position for our new city hall. It's not easy to have to get a new location.
In the longer term, Canada Post is trying to systematically change the way mail is delivered. Still, the trouble is finding a system and facility the company won't outgrow in a year or two.
Because at the end of the day, if all the things we're working on don't result in a better experience for our customers, don't result in better service, then we would have failed. There's no question about it.
Canada Post says that it hopes Iqaluit will start to see a change over the next couple of weeks, but the company says that people have a role to play too.
Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh and U.S. Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez teamed up today to find imposters in space in the hit video game Among Us. The progressive politicians broadcast their match on the online streaming site Twitch.
I'm going to do better in the next round, okay? But so far, so good, though. I don't think it's not that bad, right? It's telling me to fix the lights, so I'm just going to pretend I'm fixing lights here. Oh, they're spicy. I think that's going to be, yep, I'm going to do that right there. I'm going to get out of here real quick. Let me get out of here. Hassan is looking up. Oh, shit! Hassan's totally going to book me. Hassan's totally going to book me right here.
This all came about when the Burnaby South MP recently challenged AOC, as she's known, on Twitter. Among Us pits a team of tiny astronauts trying to return to Earth, but an anonymous saboteur is trying to kill off other crew members before they can repair their ship and identify the imposter.
I'm going Jagmeet here.
Oh, first of all, I should tell everybody it's Jug like hug. Jagmeet. Oh my goodness, everyone voted for me. Unbelievable. That's so tight. There's me, man.
Wait a minute, was it not him?
Upwards of 100,000 viewers tuned in to see the action. They even gave the NDP leader a nickname, Pogmeat, a combination, of course, of Jagmeet and the Twitch cheer Poggers. Back in October, Ocasio-Cortez took to Twitch to encourage young voters to turn out for the November 3rd presidential election. That stream earned a whopping 439,000 viewers. You got to get on Twitch,
I was
Tanya.
just going to say, Mike, you got to get on Twitch. I think you'd be a big hit. Just a reminder, you can always find our news program online, Twitch or not, at cbc.ca/BC.
Next local news right here, 11 o'clock with Mr. Dan Burrett after the National. Have a great weekend.
Good night.